Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was not expecting to speak at this time because I thought that when the people of St. Lucia went to the polls and they voted for representatives, part of their job and the reason why they get their salaries and the reason why they claim their salaries even when they're out of the country for so long is because they need to speak in the parliament. And Mr. Speaker, when a member of parliament spends 5 months out of the country, doesn't attend any parliamentary sessions, and when the time comes for him to represent the people that elected him, because, like a petulant child, he doesn't get his own way, he walks out and refuses to speak. So, Mr. Speaker, I was in opposition for 10 years. In the last 5, when I was there, it was my roughest time. The then government at the time ridiculed me, ridiculed us. We had no opportunity. Any time we asked to speak, they laughed at us. In fact, I had to speak immediately after the estimates of expenditure was given by a then Prime Minister. And I remember I used to be given these estimates on a Saturday morning, Saturday. In fact, one of the people brought it to my home one of the days. They found me in my tracksuit, and they wondered if I wore tracksuits. And I had no shirt, so they were very impressive. So, Mr. Speaker, and I got it on Saturday, and we came on Tuesday. The Minister of Finance did his stuff, and I answered on Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock. We gave these statements on Thursday, unprecedented. So, and during that time, the leader of the opposition had the opportunity to ask for information. Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, 6 days. The leader of the opposition refuses to speak in the parliament because he cannot dictate to the leader of government business when he must speak, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the people of St. Lucia voted for the member of Castries South to be leader of the opposition and not Prime Minister. Miku South, to be leader of the opposition, and he must play his role as leader of the opposition, and we will give him all the constitutional respect that he deserves, Mr. Speaker, but he will not be allowed to dictate the pace what happens in this country, Mr. Speaker. And as I say in my political thing, he must put that in his pipe and smoke it until the people of St. Lucia take a different stance. So we will not tolerate that arrogance and that rudeness. Mr. Speaker, having said so, let me thank the members for their support of the estimates of expenditure. Let me thank in particular the member for Viewfort South, Mr. Speaker. The member of Viewfort South and I sat, he's not next to me now, but we sat near each other for a long time in the cabinet, in the parliament, Mr. Speaker. And I can understand what he says about his constituency because I happen to represent my constituency at the same time with him for the same amount of years. And we have some similarities in that the people always castigate our constituencies. Them people, marchand. Them people. All sorts of things about them, Mr. Speaker. But these people, Mr. Speaker, are genuine. Most of them have the same aspirations as people who live anywhere else in the country. Most of them, Mr. Speaker. All what they need is an opportunity. And I will get some time today to speak about, because during the last election campaign, they had the mantra, what Pierre do for marchand? What Pierre do for marchand? Mr. Speaker, regardless of how many times they say that, the last election, my majority went up by 300%. And if God spares my life, and there's another time, Mr. Speaker, no matter who they send, Mr. Speaker, they can send people with all kinds of hairstyles. They can send people with all kinds of anything, Mr. Speaker. When the time comes, the majority will go up by another 300%, Mr. Speaker, when the time comes. And I want my colleague, the deputy, to follow me. Mr. Speaker, these estimates, Mr. Speaker, I want to put in context the philosophical underpinning of these estimates based on putting people first, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, look at how we have approached the business of government. And the member for Viewfort North was clear. We approach the business of government with a seriousness, in a manner where we understood that we'd found a country in crisis. And you heard them boasting, oh, you didn't find any corruption. Where is the corruption, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, we are obeying the law, and we will follow the processes of the law. So in these estimates, you have $1 million for special prosecutor, and when that time comes, the special prosecutor will do his work, Mr. Speaker, and who has to face the law will face the law. So don't bait me or boast about I've never said I found anything, and I'm not the one who will find anything. The special prosecutor and the laws of the country are going to be obeyed, Mr. Speaker. So rest assured that when the time comes, anyone who has stolen or who has caused the taxpayers' money to go to private sources or in the pockets or to any letter, the law will take its place, Mr. Speaker, regardless of the consequences. That's all I have to say on corruption now, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the philosophy of the Labour Party is putting people first, Mr. Speaker. We did not go willy-nilly and fire people, and the member for Viewfort North was right. Look at the first 8 months of our administration. Look at it. Look around the country, Mr. Speaker. Look around the country. Today, the 41st of March, many people, their contracts have come to an end, Mr. Speaker. In my constituency, the community, the health aides, their contracts come to an end today. Today it comes to an end. But because of the seriousness of the work they do, the lady who is in charge of that situation now, the second in charge, Mr. Speaker, she was the heaviest campaigner against me in the last election. Heaviest, Mr. Speaker. She said all kinds of things. I have the tapes. All kinds of things about me. All kinds of things, Mr. Speaker. Today is the 41st of March, and she's still at work because the elderly people cannot be left without adequate care, Mr. Speaker. So when they talk about victimization and vindictiveness, Mr. Speaker, the evidence is there. The evidence is there. In certain circumstances, when we have to keep people, we keep them, Mr. Speaker. But I can assure you, it is not the policy of the Labour Party to make anyone lose their job deliberately because of their political persuasion. It's not our posture, and it will never be our posture, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the culture of misinformation continues. Lies, innuendos. And I understand, I made it clear that the civil servant's salary will be paid in April 2022 and is based on an agreement made with the last government. When they could not afford to pay the salaries, they negotiated with the public service unions and they said to defer the payments. Many people have told me that I should not pay because the state of the, but I said a promise was made and I'll meet the promise and I'm going to pay the salaries this month, April, Mr. Speaker. We'll find the money and pay the salaries. We kept the promise, Mr. Speaker, that the last government made, the last commitment. We kept it, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, so when they talk about all the lies, all of the things that are all over the place, nonsense, Mr. Speaker. The evidence is there. The evidence is there, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you see, and just back to the special prosecutor, let me tell my colleague, my friend from before, the member from before, Mr. Speaker, that the $1.5 million, $1 million is for the special prosecutor, and $500,000 is to increase the drafting capacity at the Attorney General's office, because there are a number of laws that we have to put into play, and the drafting, and you know, and the member for Viva Sab knows very well, because we actually send some people to train. He actually sends the people to train in legal drafting. The $500,000 is to pay for that, Mr. Speaker. Talking about that, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to speak briefly on crime, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to say to the public of St. Lucia that the police force is not run by the Minister of National Security. There has been a tendency for the Minister of National Security to take the responsibility as if he is responsible for the police force. The Minister of National Security is responsible for the policies for crime management and crime control, and the policies for the abatement of crime in the country. He is not the Commissioner of Police. And I must make that clear, Mr. Speaker, because we have a tendency in this country to believe, and based on what happened in the last 5 years, that the Minister of National Security can call the Chief of Police and tell him, do this, do that, do that. That's not the role of the Minister of National Security. Let me tell you what the role of the Minister of National Security is, Mr. Speaker. The role of the Minister of National Security is to create the enabling environment for the police to operate, and to give the appropriate resources to the police, and to give the police policy guidance, not the operational work of the police. The Minister of National Security, Mr. Speaker, his job is not to give operational order to the police, Mr. Speaker. In the police, Mr. Speaker, all ranks from constable to assistant to inspector are determined by the Commissioner of Police. All ranks from constable to inspector are determined by the Commissioner of Police. Ranks from inspector to assistant commissioner and to commissioner are determined by the Public Service Commission. But the Prime Minister is asked his opinion on ranks from the Deputy Commissioner of Police to the Police Commissioner. The Prime Minister or the Minister of National Security, he has absolutely no power to instruct the Commissioner of Police to promote anybody. And if the Commissioner of Police tells him, go to hell, he can do nothing about it. That is the power of the Commissioner of Police. There are some positions in this country, Mr. Speaker, that politicians give themselves unnecessary strain because they take on these responsibilities. It's like the Director of Audit or the Director of Public Prosecutions. I cannot tell the Director of Public Prosecutions, I can't even speak to him. I want to make these things clear, Mr. Speaker, because there's a lot of misinformation going around the place about the relationship between the Minister of National Security and the Police Commissioner. The Police Commissioner can tell the Minister of National Security to go to hell. And that's a fact. And we must understand where our history goes, Mr. Speaker. You remember a time when a Commissioner of Police, but I'll come back to that, when a Commissioner of Police was moved, and he took the government to court, and the court said he had to be reinstated. And if that Commissioner of Police wasn't a man of conscience, he could have gone and sat down in police headquarters and nobody could move him. That's the history, Mr. Speaker. That is a history that I will not follow. He could have gone and sat at the police headquarters office, gone and sat there as commissioner of police, and nobody could have moved him. Because the court had said he had to be reinstated. So what happened? Then the government, in its wisdom, and because he cooperated, he was made special advisor in national security. So I want to make this role of police commissioner very clear. What the Prime Minister can do, he can go to the public and dismiss the commissioner for the public interest. That's all he can do. He can go and he can dismiss the commissioner for the public interest, as was done some time ago by the last government when the Frederick brothers were sent to the house, sent to the home. That's all the power he has. So I want to make it clear that the Minister of National Security cannot instruct the Commissioner of Police to do anything. He can talk to him. He can have a discussion with him, but he can't instruct him. The Constitution does not allow him to instruct the Minister of the Commissioner of Police. That's what I made clear, Mr. Speaker. So here's what the Minister of National Security can do for the police. They can create the enabling environment for the police, Mr. Speaker. And that is what we are doing in this budget. Give the police the environment for them to do their work. That is why they've got, the police, Mr. Speaker, they have got in the 8 months that we've been in the government, we've given them 13 vehicles. And before the next term is over, they're going to get 40 more vehicles to do their work, Mr. Speaker. 40 more. That's what the Minister of National Security is doing for the police. Let me tell you what he's doing again, Mr. Speaker. In this budget, Mr. Speaker, we have $300,000 for forensic services to upgrade the forensic services unit, Mr. Speaker. There's a long-standing problem of cases in the courts. Hundreds of cases in the courts, particularly murder cases, Mr. Speaker. In this budget, we have $2.27 million for what we call a swift justice project, where you're going to be reducing the backlog in the cases by appointing new judge and new support staff to help the police, because the frustration is when they arrest somebody, they can't get into court because there are backlogs in the court. That's what the Minister of National Security can do for the police. The Minister of National Security, Mr. Speaker, what he can do for the police is to give them equipment, Mr. Speaker. And this is why, in this budget, we have $260,000 for equipment for the police, and I said 40 more vehicles that they will get in this budget, Mr. Speaker. And also, because the conditions under which they work, Mr. Speaker, we are going to spend $4 million to repair police stations, Mr. Speaker, to the custody suite. Part of the frustration of the police and crime is when they arrest people, they have nowhere to put them. Because somebody's father just took a tractor and destroyed the custody suites. You understand? So when people criticize and say, you must know the history and put things in proper context. The custody suite was destroyed. So when the police arrest you, they have nowhere to put you. They arrest somebody in Castries, they have to bring them to Babono, bring them to Grosile, they fill up my station in Marchand. They have to bring them sometimes to Marigot, Dennery, because there's no place to put you. Because of the short-sightedness of taking down the custody suites for political reasons, Mr. Speaker. So my job as Minister of National Security is to rebuild the custody suites, which I am doing, and there's an allocation there for $1.1 million odd to build the cells at the custody suites. So the police now will have not the comfort, they will have an opportunity when they arrest somebody, they can take them to the custody suites, Mr. Speaker, and make their job easier. What the Minister of National Security can do for the police, Mr. Speaker? The Minister of National Security, with the Home Affairs Ministry, is repairing the Vieux-Fort police station that they left for ages. There was no need for the Vieux-Fort police station to remain in that condition. It was a small problem that they allowed to deteriorate till it came like that. That's what the minister, so we put in, Mr. Speaker, we repaying over $2 million to repair the the Vieux police station, and we also are going to repair several other stations in the country, Mr. Speaker. What is the Minister of National Security doing for the police, Mr. Speaker? We are putting the border management system so that in immigration there can be a better fit, and we can have seamless entries at the border of the country. So that we are spending some $585,000 on that, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, do you know that the training vote, when we have the hypocrisy, Mr. Speaker, about the police, and we have dinners for the police and say we give them a stove, and say we're doing things for the police, give them a stove and a settee. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, do you know that the training vote for the police was not funded? After the issues with impacts and the Leahy law, when the Americans pulled back all the funding, the police, there was no funding for the police. No funding. What did we do? $456,000, Mr. Speaker, for training for the police and for the fire service. And the fire service is an issue we have to deal with, because the fire service, the appliances in the fire service are some of them 30 years old and more. So we have to deal with fire service, but that's something we're going to do at the level, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, training for the police, the fire service, and the corrections, $456,000 to get the police officers better trained, Mr. Speaker. Get them better trained. And next year, we are going to begin the construction, if not the construction, at least advance the plans to build a new headquarters for the police, Mr. Speaker, so they can have brand new headquarters. And there's $200,000 in there for the geotechnical analysis for the police headquarters and for the House of Justice, which we are going to start this year, Mr. Speaker. And talking about conditions for the police, the Grosville police station is going to start this year. And the member for Vieux South can tell you clearly, there was no reason why that station was not built in 2016. There was no reason why. NIPRO had approved the funds. There was no reason why it wasn't built. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because the contractual arrangements could not be done to fit certain people, Mr. Speaker. So when you hear them talking about the police, it's hurtful, Mr. Speaker. It's very hurtful. Because you know the conditions that we inherited in that police force when we came into power when we came into government in 2021, Mr. Speaker. That Grosville police station, there were complaints and protests about the Grosville police station. The NIPRO, the plans for the Grosville police station. And when the time comes in the policy, I can make it a document in the House. These plans were available from 2016. They refused to build it. What they decided, near election, they decided they're going to one building, they're coming back, they're doing this just because they could not get who they wanted to build the station, so that what happened will have to happen. I'm sure the Minister of Housing knows more about that than me. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the situation with the police and this government, Mr. Speaker. This government has always taken care of the police. We were the ones who built the police stations in 1997. And you know, you must go back to the history. In 1997, think about probably many of these young officers do not know that. Look at the plight of police stations in 1997 when they got into government. We built the Marshall police station. We built a new one in Grosville. We built Dennery. We built Ancillary. We built Miku. We fixed up Choiseul. At the time, we built a new headquarters in Vieux-Fort. And look at fire stations. The last one in Babylon, we are the one who built it. And Miku. When you might believe it, because Miku, a bastion of UWPism, did not have a fire station. We built it. So, Mr. Speaker, the history, and that is why they will do whatever they'll try to do to silence me, but they will not. The history is clear. And the people who do not know the history must learn the history. and read the history and ask other people about the history, Mr. Speaker. So our conscience on the police is very, very clear. Our conscience is clear. I remember when we built the forensic lab, the member from Mico South said it was a waste of money. I remember. So our conscience, and my conscience in particular, because I've always said, Mr. Speaker, I went to school on policeman's salary. But I want to tell the police that their job is very important. It's extremely important. And when one man fails, you cannot have a system where you think one man must fail for you to get it, for you to do well. It's got to be a chain. Because if there's a problem in that chain, things can happen. Because their job is so serious that if one man drops the ball, a lot of people can suffer. So it can't be a situation where you have to wait for one to fail for you to do well. It can't be a scrape in the barrel when you're a police officer. It's too much of a serious job, Mr. Speaker. Having said so, we are very, very pleased with most of the officers of the police force. They work hard. They work very hard, very pleased with them. But fact is, their job is very important, and there will always be pressure on them, Mr. Speaker. But we are trying our best to see if we can relieve their situation, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on borrowing, I will deal with a lot of that in the policy part of the debate. But we are clear as to who we borrowed money from. We didn't hide it. Very clear. We said who we will borrow it from. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, between July and March, we did not come to this honorable house to borrow 1 extra cent. We financed, neither did we have any letters. We financed the budget with bonds and treasury bills, Mr. Speaker, and cash flow. That's how we finance it. Mr. Speaker, so we're going to get back to the borrowing, etc., and who managed the economy better. But I can tell you, Mr. Speaker, you can ask the officials in the Ministry of Finance, and any public servant or any policeman, Mr. Speaker, I have never asked any public servant to play politics to me. Never. I'm good enough at my politics, Mr. Speaker. I'm good enough at it. I've shown it. Me and the member of yourself, we've won 6 elections. If you win 6 elections, you are stupid. And that is why all what they try, they can't succeed. And when the time comes, I will speak to the people of Cashews East, and I'm going to live gracefully and well, with no bitterness or anger or quarreling people. Nah, I'm going to live, and I ain't going far, you know. Just where I live all the time. That's why I go in and write my book. So, Mr. Speaker, we're going to deal with borrowing at some point. A few points about a community after-school program. Again, misinformation. The community after-school program was not funded by the United Workers' Party in the last election. It was not funded by it. Just a quick, Mr. Speaker, now, fuel prices, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, you know, the truth is something, do you know that it may be very possible that we may have to be funding fuel, subsidizing fuel, even more than we're doing now? The last budget that was premised by the member for Mico South, he premised it on $4 a gallon from fuel, excise tax on fuel. $2.50, the regular one, and he put $1.50, he said, for roads. He said he'll put it in a lockbox. I have asked the members in the Ministry of Finance, show me the lockbox.
It's the lost box.
They can show me neither the lock nor the box. I don't blame them for that. Why is the lockbox? He said that so I expected now to find a lump of money in the lockbox. As we said all the time, that money was put in the consolidated fund to run the country. That's what it was. $4, Mr. Speaker. They did. Now I saw somebody tell me to pay the fisher people $150. We give the fisher people more than $150. We give them more than $150 because right now when the last hike was done on fuel, Mr. Speaker, we made 26 cents a gallon. That's what the government made. 26 cents a gallon from $4 that was predicted by the last Minister for Finance. Right now, and with the next adjustment, I've been told that that 26 cents may be eroded, Mr. Speaker. So what we have, the environment we have to operate on is an environment where we will be even subsidizing fuel even further. And there's a member for Cashew South who reminded me that we are already subsidizing fuel to the extent of 26 cents minus $4. Or if you want 26 cents minus $2.50. That's what we're doing now. And we have to manage under that. And we have to manage the economy. You know why, Mr. Speaker? Because we sit down like a team. We sit with the officials in the Ministry of Finance, the Treasury, and we work things out like a team. And there is no waste. There is no lavish spending. There is no do this, do that for my friend. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you something, Mr. Speaker. Do you know, and we're going to deal with that in the point, because you know, we have to put the record straight when people masquerade of being managers of the economy. You have to put the record straight. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, when he came into government, we've won $186 million of DFCs, and you know not one of them was tendered. Not one. All of them with a record. All of them. Why? For political purposes, Mr. Speaker. So, we're going to go leave that in the policy, Mr. Speaker. The member for Choiseul spoke about the youth economy and service, and you know, we're going to do that at the policy because I will give the member for Choiseul an opportunity to redeem himself, Mr. Speaker. Because he knows what he said about the youth and service. I'm not even going to, and the SLDB, I sat there, and I said to the then Minister of Finance, if you are establishing an SLDB, make sure it has enough equity so it can operate. You remember that, Mister? Yes, I said make sure it has enough equity. Make sure it has enough equity. Make sure you put enough money for it to operate. Because if you don't have enough money, it will not be able to operate. So the SLDB, the Europeans want to give them money for on lending, but they can't give to them because the equity base is too small. So we now, and we now have to upgrade it so they can borrow the money. So he comes speaks about, you know. Speaker, let's move on. I know you want to go. Mr. Speaker, the member for Choiseul speaks about he didn't get anything for his constituency. Mr. Speaker, there were six members of parliament here in the last election. For the last election. Not one of these honorable gentlemen can tell you that anything was done in their constituency. None of us. They gave us nothing. Nothing. You know what they did? They did some. Yes, you did. You tried. You know what I mean, Mr. Speaker? And I'm glad he said he tried. Because I want to go back a little bit. Give me the leeway, Mr. Speaker. I haven't got an hour yet. I'm 1 hour. I'll ask if I need more time. I asked them, they went to court. They said that I built a wall with government money. There was one, they have two of them, Mr. Speaker, with different types of heads. Hairstyles. The first hairstyle, he said that I took government money and I built a wall. I won him. I came here and I won him. I said to the Prime Minister at the time, tell him to stop saying that. I went upstairs. I said to the Prime Minister, tell him to stop saying that. I'm going to take action against him. That's when they start saying things. There was a newspaper, big headline. I warned them, Mr. Speaker. I warned them. Because the story of that wall, the member for Cassius North knows the story of that wall. I resisted that wall. I resisted it. I said, no, don't do it. Because it was there long before I was born. But what happened is that there was a collapse of the road higher up, and then there was nowhere to pass. So then they said they had to do it. Do you understand? So they built it. So the Great Wall of Pip. All kind of things. They took pictures. My daughter and said, Daddy, I want to have a camera in my home. And things. I sued them. I went. I didn't tell the Attorney General what to do. I didn't instruct the Attorney General. I didn't do anything. I took my time in court, Mr. Speaker. As an opposition, yeah. I didn't quarrel. The time I was in government, I could have started. When I could have been in government, when it started, I didn't. And as the good Lord would make it, Mr. Speaker, the court found that I could have got more money, you know. I collect already, yes. And I'll tell you why did it fit. The good Lord told me that I sued them, and the court found that I could have got a lot more money. But because I'd done so well in the elections, the nonsense that they spoke did not work, and the court awarded me some money, Mr. Speaker, and I did something with it that I'll tell you in secret. So, Mr. Speaker, so much. But let me tell you what we've done for them. Since we've been in government, we've had 3 programs for constituencies. On the 20th of November, we had a stimulus program. Both Microsoft and Chozel got allocations. On the 18th of August, we had a school support, going back to school. Both Microsoft and Chozel got allocations. And then we have a house repair program, both Microsoft, that is ongoing, both Microsoft and Chozel will get allocations. Exactly. And I want to ask him, tell him, whether South, Labrie, Beaufort North, Beaufort South, or Denby North ever got 1 cent when we were in opposition. So when they come and we say these lies, and they always accuse people of lying and things. Mr. Speaker, now, Mr. Speaker, you heard him speak about the highway, we stop projects, exactly, Mr. Speaker. We stop projects and things so. Mr. Speaker, and more is going to be said about that highway. That highway story is a story more has to be said about it. Mr. Speaker, let me read for you a press release, part of a press release, as follows. A loan agreement was signed today in Castries between, coming to that just now, between the St. Lucia and Kuwaiti Fund for Arab Economic Development, whereby the fund will extend a loan of Kuwaiti dollars 3.5 million Kuwaiti dollars, equivalent to about 11.9 million US dollars, to contribute in financing the Shock Bay Grozili and Secondary Roads Improvement Project. The loan agreement was signed on behalf of St. Lucia by His Excellency Dr. Kenny Davis Anthony, Prime Minister of St. Lucia, Minister of Finance, Economic Affairs, Plan and Social Security, and on behalf of the fund by Mr. Ali Bada, Director General of the Kuwaiti Fund for Arab and Economic Development. In attendance, blah, blah, blah. You know when that loan signing was, Mr. Speaker? 23rd of March, 2015. 23rd of March, 2015. And listen to the loan period. 20 years, including 4 years grace, amortized in 32 semi-annual installments, an interest rate of 2.5% in addition to 0.5 per annum to cover administrative costs. That was in 2015. We lost the elections in 2016. And they cancelled the loan. And they are spending $17 million to do less than 1 mile of road in Rodney. Without any design. Mr. Speaker, so these facts, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, and then they speak about that St. Lucia, the member for Choiseul, St. Lucia is having the second best recovery, and the member for Viva South was clear. This economy declined by 20.7%. And you can't tell me it's because of tourism. It's because from 2017, the economy was already in decline. And when the member for Viewfort North read it, I saw the member from Viewfort, from Miku South. He took the same book and he read. When he began to read, his face just turned, contorted, and he got up and he go. These are facts. Because you can speak well and you can speak with your accent. And say all kinds of things, Mr. Speaker. But when you get to the facts will set you free. Now, let me deal with St. Jude Hospital and Hiwando International Airport. And we'll do more in the policy statement, Mr. Speaker. But I know we have short memories. And and I need to say these things now. You don't have to repeat them at the policy statement. Because these lies are just repeated. Let me tell you about St. Jude, Mr. Speaker. You heard, Mr. Speaker, and even saw it last 2 weeks ago. We would have had a new hospital in how many months? 3 months, right, Minister Fredericks? 3 months, we'll have a new hospital. There'll be a new hospital, in 3 months. The Labour Party stopped a project that will give them a new hospital in 3 months. Let me tell you, St. Jude Hospital, Mr. Speaker, St. Jude. And the time will come. It's coming. In July 2021, according to a report by the Ministry of Economic Development, $118.5 million had been spent on the new block. That's the warehouse, the car park. They had spent $89.2 million, and there were outstanding liabilities of $28 million. And the hospital was less than 30% complete. What they tell you that they will have put you in 6 months was less than 30% complete. So in the current trajectory, and that's very simple mathematics, if 30% was 118.5 million, 100% would have been 393 million. Without the supply issue problems that we have now, what they are doing now would have cost $393 million, Mr. Speaker. But listen to me, and you see, Mr. Speaker, when they lie, they don't understand that they forgot some of the papers, they didn't burn all. In the Ministry of Economic Development, Mr. Speaker, there is a document which is a draft finance agreement for St. Jude Hospital reconstruction project. That document was on the 15th of July 2021. And listen to the financing of what they're doing there, Mr. Speaker. 15 July 2021. 2 weeks before elections. 11 days before elections. Listen, the same people who told you, you'd have a new hospital in 6 months and the Labour Party stop it. Listen to the agreement that they wanted to sign on the 15th of July. The works contract. The works are captured in 2 work contracts awarded to. You see, Mr. Speaker? you see, Mr. Speaker, there are a few things I don't do in my politics. I never call civil servants names, and I never call names of people who can't defend themselves. But you see, when you can defend yourself, when you put yourself in the political arena, I'll call your name. So, listen to what described as follows. Architectural works, transition costs to bring ground floor into use. Transition costs. Fourth schedule, financing and repayment. The client agrees to enter into a payment plan and therefore agree to settle the financial obligations to the company over a period of 1 year. From the date the works are completed according to this agreement. Architectural works, 22 million. Ground floor works, 34 million. Subtotal works, 56 million. VAT, 7 million. Finance costs, 6 million. So when you see these people talking, Mr. Speaker, I mean, sometimes I sit there in amazement. The cream. Finance costs, 6 million. You're building a hospital, a social long-term program, and your finance costs for 1 year. Grand total, $70 million. That is the agreement that these guys had in place on the 15th of July to say they will complete St. Jude Hospital. And that's the document, Mr. Speaker. That's the document. That's the ground floor alone. So on the current trajectory, the entire hospital will cost $293 million, and the ground floor would cost 70 plus 118. $188 million for the ground floor. Now I want to understand, how could you be working, how can you have 6 people on the ground floor and working on the top floor? Mr. Speaker, and sometimes this shameless bravado is something, Mr. Speaker, we have to deal with. 70. But in his wisdom, somebody in the civil service was wise enough to say, I have put my signature on that. And and he sent it to the Honorable Attorney General for reference. That happened on the 15th of July, 11 days before election, so the rest is history. So you can imagine if these guys had won the election, they would sign up. Mr. Speaker, that's what the people of St. Lucia saved themselves from, That's what they saved themselves from. That's what the people saved themselves from, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, that's the story of St. Jude. But I'm going to say to you, Mr. Speaker, that we've done our evaluation and we found that going back to the first St. Jude, that they stopped and they audited, we are going back to repair this and work on that. Will start this year, and the people of St. Lucia will get St. Louis from it. But that's not the last of that. That is not the last of, you will hear of that car park. That's not the last you'll hear of it. That's not the last you're going to hear about it. We are going to find out more. And when they begin to scream, well, I find nothing. We haven't found nothing. They're right. Mr. Speaker, Hiwanora International Airport. And they tell you, your stop airport. Mr. Speaker, first of all, we've never stopped any work at any airport. That's not true. Let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, we're going to do that in the policy statement. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, the agreement that this government cancelled, in that agreement, the PPP agreement, the person who is building the airport would be solely responsible for any cost overruns. What it means is that the arrangement they had to build the airport, they'd have to keep to it. There'll be no cost overruns. So in that case, the issues that we have now would not impact the agreement because the agreement said there'll be no cost overruns. But let me tell you what we put the previous PPP arrangement that we negotiated. But let me tell you what they found, what they did instead, Mr. Speaker. The former Prime Minister instructed the General Manager of SLASPA to handpick a contractor by a single source or direct award to construct the terminal. I'll read that again. And I want them to say that's not true. The former Prime Minister instructed the General Manager, and the former Prime Minister was not Kenny Anthony or not Stevenson King. The former Prime Minister instructed the General Manager to handpick a contractor by a single source or direct award to construct the terminal. The largest investment in the country, the Prime Minister instructs somebody to appoint a contractor. Instruct. He didn't ask him, advise him. He instructed him. Coming further, the original location of the terminal was directly north of the existing terminal, but it was changed to a northwest location close to the river, thereby requiring 10 times more piling than was required in the original location. 10 times more piling. The new location appears to have been premised on the integration of the DSH racetrack project. That's the story about that they say we stop. That's the story that they say we stop. 10 times. And then follow, Mr. Speaker, follow. The Prime Minister instructed the contractor to do it on a fast-track basis. And by September 2021, on the fast-track basis, the airport was 9 months delayed. 9 months delayed, Mr. Speaker. And coming further, given the start date of September 11, 2020, remember when they had a big story up there? A false start, fresh and false. And the contract period of 11 months, Mr. Speaker, the project should be 40% complete, but it was 10% complete at September 2021. Further, after 1 year, Mr. Speaker, since the commencement of the construction, the overall cost increase from the foundation and shell package of the project is $42.4 million US. In 1 year, there was $42.4 million cost overrun. In 1 year, just because of the piling. And that's what, Mr. Speaker, they say we stop. We're going further. Under a worst case scenario, now, COVID caused some delays. We agree. But not much, because because they were piling. But let's get them cause some delays. All right. On the worst case scenario, the ROM scenario indicates the final cost of the project can range between 398 million to 439 million US dollars. US dollars. Mr. Speaker, that is what the member from Miku South wanted to put this country through, you know. That is what, and Mr. Speaker, it baffles me. The arrogance. 439 million US dollars. That is nearly $1 billion for one project and no maintenance yet. Mr. Speaker, that's the worst case scenario. On a more controlled basis, the final figures can cost between 289 million to 318 million, Mr. Speaker. And under a very efficient scenario, it can cost 234 to 265 million. Mr. Speaker, that is what they are talking about when it comes to an airport, Mr. Speaker. But we're going to hear more about that later. We're going to hear more about it, Mr. Speaker, because you see, Mr. Speaker, exactly. All these stories, Mr. Speaker, all that noise you hear, and all that noise and this flashing mirrors, is to put people off, to get the eyes of the Indonesian public off the real issues, Mr. Speaker. Get them off, Mr. Speaker. But, Mr. Speaker, we're going to get more of that in the policy statements. But, Mr. Speaker, briefly, I want to just say something about my constituency, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my constituency, I want to tell you something about legal fees. You heard that they told you that we were paying a lawyer $500,000 for a case. And the lawyer himself defended himself on TV last night. But let me tell you what we owe for cases, Mr. Speaker. What we inherited. $518,000, which is due for outstanding outside counsel, outstanding invoice amounts, Mr. Speaker. And I'm not going to it's not my style of mentioning people's names. But out of that, a lawyer well known to us is owed $142,000. And another one, out not in St. Lucia, is owed $88,000. You don't talk about the vaccines yet. So, Mr. Speaker, so when you hear the hypocrisy of we paying outside lawyers, Mr. Speaker, outside lawyers, and it costs, Mr. Speaker, there was no payment of any $500,000 to Astefan. I shouldn't call his name, to any legal counsel. That's not true. Never happened, Mr. Speaker. It's just sheer lies, if I can use the word there. Never happened. But look at the facts, Mr. Speaker. And do you know, Mr. Speaker, part of that salary, part of these debts and what they paid out. Listen to the cases, Mr. Speaker, the money they paid to get to victimize people. When you talk about victimization. And allow me to call their names, Mr. Speaker, allow me to call their names. When they fired the people working at the embassies, we haven't fired one ambassador, not one, including the one who were against me, who have no hair. In fact, we gave him a month. No, they're not. And that's another story. We gave him a whole month extra. Look at what they did, Mr. Speaker. Look at how they spend taxpayers' money. How expensive. Talk about victimization. Daryl Monchop took a lawyer to fight against him. It cost them $54,000 plus $42,000, $96,000 to fight Daryl Monchop. Because they fired Daryl Monchop as cabinet secretary, and Daryl took them to court. I still have the cabinet secretary that I found. Let's go further. Elizabeth Darius, the ambassador to Washington, $41,000 when they fired her. They had to pay a lawyer $41,000 because they fired her. And then they had to pay her all what she was due again. One more. Michael Willius, the ambassador to Canada, High Commissioner, they fired him. They had to pay a lawyer $26,000. Kenny Anthony versus the Attorney General, when they were investigating him, they had to pay a lawyer $15,000. See, Mr. Speaker? In the matter of, listen to the matter of St. Jude Hospital, that's the money they spend. Remember they say that we had done something in St. Jude Hospital, we had stolen money, we had corruption. They paid lawyers $312,000. Daryl Monchop again. Daryl Monchop again. Daryl Monchop versus the public service, the Attorney General, $156,000. They had to pay lawyers. Daryl Monchop again, $6,500. Daryl Monchop again, $74,000. Daryl Monchop again, $108,000 and $81,000. Mr. Speaker, Ernest Hilaire, potential criminal proceedings, $15,000. Potential claim against control of customs by Ernest Hilaire, $38,000 plus $5,000 lawyer fees. Mr. Speaker, Martinez François, when he took them to court for the Deputy Speaker, they paid outside counsel $48,000 just because they didn't want to appoint the Deputy Speaker. And look at the difference in this government. We appointed a Deputy Speaker. More coming, Mr. Speaker, more. The Attorney General versus Richard Fredericks, $9,000. Pay a lawyer again. I call nobody's name. Remember, I'm not calling anybody's name. That's not my style. St. Lucia National Trust, when they break down the prison, this fellas. Taxpayers' money. St. Lucia National Trust, they had to pay a lawyer $28,000 to do what? So, Mr. Speaker, these are not opinions, you know. These are cases that this government brought when they victimized people and the people took them to court. These are not opinions, you know. Asking for an opinion. People they brought to court, when you talk about vindictiveness, people they brought to court and the people challenged them in the court. And what's happened? And there's more. There's Tracy Polius and all of them that they settled. Mr. Speaker, we have not fired not one ambassador, not one. We have not sent one public servant home. This government fired the cabinet secretary. The cabinet secretary is an individual who is revered. He's the head of the public service. Serious constitutional job. They fired him. And he took them to court. And look at what they had to pay. The taxpayers. Plus the fact they may have to pay more money. So when you see they talk about victimization and vindictiveness and nonsense, Mr. Speaker, we have to, and there's more, you know. That's not all. There's more. There's a lot more, Mr. Speaker. And as well, the Deputy Wale was speaking about it, we have not come out and said the things we found in these ministries. We have not. The movement of money from here to there, SSDF, we've not. The money, $650,000 moved to SSDF 2 days before elections. And the list of checks that the people they wrote the money for. So this victimization they talk about, Mr. Speaker, and the problem with our party, Mr. Speaker, the problem with our party is we have been very shy with saying what we found and saying what we do. You understand? Mr. Speaker, so I just want to make clear, Mr. Speaker, that all that noise you hear about, like the noise about Sky FM, Mr. Speaker, all that noise about Sky FM, you're running a radio station without a license, you must leave it open for you? We beg you. It's the same thing with him this morning, the member of Microsoft. We begged him. The leader of government business begged him. They said, "Sir, I never heard somebody so before. I wasn't there, but I heard, because I had not taken part in that. Let the member, let the leader." That's how we are in our government. Each man has his responsibilities. The member for Microsoft is the leader of government business. For Cashew, sorry, is the leader of government business. So he has to negotiate the leader of the opposition. He begged him, "Please talk, please." No, he begged. He still talk when he wants. Anyhow, so Mr. Speaker, just my constituency, Mr. Speaker, my constituency in Cashew East, Mr. Speaker.
Will witness the opening of the Jazz Festival?
Yes, it will, next year. We come back there next year.
All the things that's not stated there, tell us about it.
Mr. Speaker, roads.
Yeah, let's say.
Do you know, Mr. Speaker, the mayor for Cashew North, I begged him to fix the Marshall Road. Payment for Marshall. One of them who sat there said they should have skyscrapers in Marshall. They write a script for him. He was here for an hour. He spent 46.6 minutes talking about me. And I sat there and I tell him, you're not going to be here again. So when we put our candidate there, the one I was sitting here, he said, "Who else said? Auntie Emma? Auntie Emma?" And he laughed. Ha, 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 ha. Look at where Auntie Emma is. And ask him where he is. That's the power of the people, comrade. And don't follow that. Laughed at us. Laughed. Look at where he is now. Outside corridor, nothing. But who is there? Roads. The member for Cashew North, I said to him that the roads in my constituency have not been touched. They touched it in 2011, when they won? 2011 they won? 206, Mr. Speaker. When they had another one with a hairstyle running against me. They fixed, by the REC award, they did Pave, Rockwell. A company called A&M did it. Pave and Rockwell, Mr. Speaker. And they had a plan to do Enchipo, the main road, and Bocage. Because the plan was to unseat me. So they started doing all them roads just before elections. But the people of Cashew, you can't fool them. When we came into government, we completed Enchipo and we completed Bocage. That's the sum total of roads in my constituency. Sum total, nothing more. The Marchand Road, they refuse to fix it. And now they complain, what Pierre do for Marchand? Look at Marchand, what Pierre do for Marchand. I begged the Minister of Youth, the member for Cashew North. He says, "I can help you. I'll put it on. But the money he never told me until he got liberated that they were taking it out. They were taking it out. They'll take it off, Mr. Speaker. Instead, they will do all kind of roads in Dauphin, all kind of roads, Mr. Speaker. Oh, we did a road. No. Look, ask the member from Microsoft, for Kashi, for South. We did a road to you, in Choiseul. A lot of roads, remember? We did a lot of roads to you. Because the member for Viewers always told me I have a special relationship with Choiseul. Yeah, he always told me that. We did roads for you. Yes.
You do appreciate that.
We did roads for you. So we aren't talking about victimization. The facts are right, And one day, the facts will come to bear. So, Mr. Speaker, with the DFCs, they had a little extra. They wanted to do roads in all kind of places. Roads to nowhere. We are going to literally nowhere. Yeah. We're going to refashion it, Mr. Speaker. We'll do 2 roads in the mayor from Mikos, the mayor of Kashi South told you about the 2 roads, it's 2 roads. Yeah. So we're going to be doing the Marshall Road, Tourouge, Boboville, and Ravine to 12. These roads are going to start very soon, Mr. Speaker. Because these people need it, they deserve it. No matter what names they call them, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we are going to repair the daycare center. A daycare center I built in the HRDC building. And Mr. Speaker, you know what? Listen to how we think in this party. I went to cabinet, I said to my colleagues, I beat Romanus in the election. I beat him badly. He beat me once, but I beat him again. I beat him very badly, 2,400 votes. But that's not the point. And Romanus and we were good friends in the latter part of his life. He had tried his best to do 2 things. Build a new hospital and build a HRDC. He had a walk for Victoria, dance for Victoria, drive for Victoria. He collected $1 million. During that time, same thing different, yes. But the HRDC, he did not finish it, could not start it. He had a raffle, and they collected to from the Marshall Women's League. That's a powerful organization, you see. Romanus was president of the Women's League. He was, for his life, he was president for life of the Women's League. Anyway. But Mr. Speaker, I went to the cabinet and there were some EDF funds, so I asked the member for Viva Soviet Prime Minister, could I have some of these funds to do it? We did the work, due diligence, and we built it. Romanus' dream, daycare center and a community center, we built it. We finished it, we had it open in 2001. Now, Mr. Speaker, I got back in government, and with the consent of my colleagues, we renamed it the Romanus Lansing Human Resource Development Center. Absolutely, it was his dream, so we did it. That's how we operate. That's how we operate. We don't operate with vindictiveness and hatred. We're in opposition. We used to laugh, we joke. There's no hatred. I did something. In politics, one will win and one to lose. Nobody has this chair forever. I will not be prime minister all my life. I will go 2 means. By God, 3 means. By God, by resignation, or the people will take me out. I know that any man or woman who goes into politics, they must understand, they must be psychologically prepared to lose elections. You must have a psychological makeup. And that is why when I lose, I'm the same way like when I win. I never change my lifestyle when I win. Never. And what I have now is because I'm prime minister. Not because I want it. Not because I want it. I have to. I travel next week, only the 4th time, Not the.
Minister of Finance, you have 15 minutes left. Huh?
So I have no.
Need more time?
I can take 15 more minutes? 15 more.
Mr. Speaker, rise standing orders 3210 to ask for another 15 minutes for the honorable member.
Honourable members, the question is that we invoke Standing Order 3210 to allow the Minister for Finance an additional 15 minutes in which to conclude his rebuttal. I now put the question. As many as that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, my colleagues. So I was saying, so when you're in this business, you can lose and you can win. So all the things you have when you win, you must understand you lose it when you lose. So you must have your life in a certain way that when you lose, you're the same way like when you win. No, I don't. You're missing it. So the trappings that you have now as Prime Minister, you will lose it when you're not Prime Minister. That's a fact. So, Mr. Speaker, next week I'm traveling. They asked me for all kind of things. I said, no, I don't want that. I want to go to Miami. I can't shop at any big store. So you have first to follow me when I go in at Walmart. So I said to them, I don't want the trappings of the Secret Service, etc. Because it's not me again to you know. They get to the office. And that's a big difference. And that's what we must understand. It's not about the man, it's about the office. The man will leave the office, but the office will remain. So when you lose elections, you can't be so bitter and be so revengeful and want to speak when you want and go talk to people and go and cast their yours. And what kind of thing?
No longer yours.
So, Mr. Speaker, back to my constituency. So, Mr. Speaker, we are going to repair the daycare center in my constituency. The Enchipo Secondary School, Mr. Speaker, again, is in my constituency. But since we do not have zoning, the children in my area do not go to that school because it's not zoning. So it's according to your mark to go to that school. So most of the children in Enchipo don't come from my constituency, most of them. But we're going to now that school was in a serious state of disrepair. They refuse to do it because it's my constituency. But under the EQIP program, we're going to repair it. When I what? When I got the boulevard? Just now. But that's where you always get leaks, you know. We come in there. Because you see, let me give you a story about it. If I give you a story about the boulevard, even you will feel sorry for the person. So, Mr. Speaker, the Marshall Combined School renamed the Bishop Gashi School, Mr. Speaker. We're going to be doing some repairs in that school based on the government on the repairs to schools, Mr. Speaker. Bocage. Bocage is the place where my opponents always believe they win. They have some belief in Bocage. Mr. Speaker, Bocage has a small playing field for small goals and a court. Anytime I'm in government, I repair a court. The last time we put lights in, 5 years, nothing. 5 years, nothing. So out of the 25 years I've represented the people of Castries East, for 10 years I get nothing. Absolutely nothing for 10 years, nothing. So for 5 years, they did nothing to the court. I'm in government, so we're going to be repairing the court. We've started putting playing fields, putting lights in a mini playing field. We're going to be lighting it. We're doing some work there. And out of my CDP allocation, which you'll get, we're going to, you'll get.
That's much as
Out of my CDP allocation, I'm going to be doing a children's park. Because, Mr. Speaker, you know, these things hurts me, man. You know, the children's park for the people in Touge. These guys are all the thing. Ah, Lord. For children, you know. Sometimes this hurts me. For children, these guys refuse to fix it. They refuse to fix the swings. They refuse to do anything in the park because I built it to make the children of Touge, poor children, that they haven't got the physical space to play. That even if you see the children on Sundays, Mr. Speaker, you see joy in their hearts. They used to go and play and swing, and the mothers on the internet, because we had Wi-Fi in there, and the parents and the children. That was such a joy. Some parents would come down and sell ice cream. These guys stopped that, just to hurt me. They stopped it. They made the children suffer just to hurt me, to win my seat, to say Pierre had enough information. That's what my for shows there. I don't know if you knew that, but that's what was happening, Right now, right as we speak, we are repairing it, and under my CDP funds, I'm going to change the swings and get it back into the Mr. Speaker, you're asking about the George Charles Boulevard. The George Charles Boulevard. There's a comfort station in George Charles Boulevard. That comfort station was planned from the days of Peter Josie. And as a substitute, they built something next to the Marchand grounds. And that thing got burned. Something happened there, it got burned. So, we built a comfort station. They allow it to deteriorate to nothing. Right now, we have to build it back, but you have issues of security, etc. The people get frustrated. So we are getting the George Charles, we are getting it back into today, Mr. Speaker. But the George Charles Boulevard needs a serious bout of relocation and you need to do something serious in George Charles Boulevard. But that's something you have to talk to people about and take it one day at a time. But right now, we're going to do little things to make it more comfortable, Mr. Speaker. One of the biggest problems in my constituency is the ownership of land. In the entire Bagatelle area and the Rockall area, that land is not owned by the people who live there. And any time, like Toulouse also, and any time you do any renovations, like when you build steps or you put lights as we did, they want to raise the price of the land on the people. Yes. That's what they want to do. We do the infrastructure and they want to raise the price. So we need to have entire land tenure system in Bagatelle, in Rockall, and in Toulouse. And Banana and Monlato. Entire. But you see, when they talk, you see, Mr. Speaker, when you born and you don't understand what people live, what people suffer, and how people live, when you're born and the only thing you can say in patois is what? Me fâché. That's all you can say in patois. Me fâché. You don't understand that. You don't understand what people go through. So you stay in your Tower of Babel and you believe that you can just pontificate. So when they went to Bagatelle before the elections, the people of Bagatelle were very nice. They were very nice because they knew what they would have done. So they went to Bagatelle in a big entourage. In Bagatelle, Pierre do nothing, Pierre do nothing, Pierre do nothing. So. But Mr. Speaker, the people of Bagatelle, we started. They never told the people that in 2016, lawyer Shirley Lewis, with a surveyor, Wendell Phillips, deceased, had started the surveying, the member of your staff knows that because he had to prove it, had started the surveying of the land in Bagatelle to give the people, to sell for the people. They stopped it for 5 years. They stopped it, Mr. Speaker. For 5 years they stopped it. And go to Bagatelle and tell the people, Pierre, do nothing. But we're going to start it back, Mr. Speaker. In the meantime, we're going to do some minor infrastructure revisions, Mr. Speaker. Diamond Steel Orchestra. With my Constituency Development Fund allocation, I'm going to revive Diamond Steel Orchestra. Marshall Grounds. Mr. Speaker, these things are really hurtful, you know. We spend $1 million on the Marshall Grounds in between 2011 and 2016. Marshall Grounds had lights before Sabina Park in Jamaica. We resurfaced the playing field. Because you might know that Marshall Grounds, I don't know either, but I heard, was a cemetery. That was a cemetery. So we resurfaced it. Some of the greatest sportsmen, Hilron Phillips, Delbert Martial, the Morissette, Mindu, they played in the Marshall Grounds. And these guys could not meet their full potential because they have injuries, etc. We resurfaced it completely. It was international standard. We fenced it. We put a drainage system, they did Oliver Scott, drainage system. The grounds were international standard. You know these guys allow that. These guys, Mr. Speaker, they allow that. They allow what they call, what's the name of the little grass? Pack pool to grow in that. Just to hurt me? They took it over just to hurt me? And then if they go and tell people, pay or do nothing. We built changing rooms. Out of frustration, the first massively changing rooms. We renovated the James Belgrave Court. They refused to put security in there. They first mash it up. Now, let me make it clear. I do not condone the destruction of government facilities. And I've said to my constituents, anybody who destroys any government facilities, I personally will ask the police to arrest them. Because you cannot destroy government facilities. I don't condone that. Belgrave Court, they allow it, because no security, they run it down. Marshall Grounds, they run it down. So now we have to start back from scratch, Minister for Sports, and re-engineer these areas. But you say you spend $30 million on facilities. Mr. Speaker, you know what $30 million could have done for sports facilities in St. Lucia? Every constituency would have a playing field, lighted, and a court. Every constituency. But you spend $30 million for artificial courts, and you heard what the Minister of Health told you about it. That's where the priorities are. That's where the priorities are, Mr. Speaker. That's where the priorities are. That's what we mean when we say you did not put people first. So, Mr. Speaker, we need some street lights. Do you know, Mr. Speaker, when we were in government, we allowed parliamentary reps to write Lucilec for street lamps. You know you all stopped that? Parliamentary reps were powerless. 6 of us, we were there. We were powerless. Not even a street lamp we could get. We could do nothing in our constituencies. Nothing. We couldn't clean a drain. To get a street lamp, you had to write the Ministry of Infrastructure. Lucilec said that parliamentary reps could not write on their own for a street lamp because of the government of the United West Party, led by the man from Microsoft. So we needed to write to the Ministry of Infrastructure to beg for a light. We're changing that. You can write now. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to tell you, Mr. Speaker, that for our 8 months in government, it has been very, very challenging and exciting. Talk about COVID, Mr. Speaker. We had to deal with the Delta variant. And I saw that they wrote somewhere that I said we were not prepared. And I maintain at that time we were not prepared. And you know that. There was no quarantine facilities. And that's why we have paid millions of dollars for quarantine facilities, because if you had the foresight, you could have arranged quarantine facilities much earlier. You could have refurbished somewhere at a cheaper rate and have quarantine facilities like they did in Barbados. Barbados only at the end of the virus, they began to rent hotels. What Barbados is they refurbish the old Harrison barracks, they refurbished it, and they had quarantine facilities there. So you were not prepared. Because when you're talking about quarantine facilities, you're talking about Rat Island. So you're not prepared. And I insist you're not prepared. So You had to pay millions of dollars for quarantine facilities because you were not prepared. You could have, I am sure, you could have got another place for quarantine. There are schools that are underused. You could have used a school, refurbish it properly. You could do that. There are a lot of buildings you could have used. But you were not prepared because you took it as a joke. Because we said so, you laugh at us as usual. And now you try to turn on us and say, I said, of course I said so.
That's right.
Mr. Speaker, so COVID, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Minister, you have 15 minutes left.
Yes, I'll finish that then. The Delta variant. We never, in fact, I remember they laughing at me when I wore my mask. I remember that. Laugh at me. I never went to any fete in ancillary canneries, in the valleys in ancillary canneries, without my mask. And be among people playing like I dancing, or I can dance. We never did that pretending you can dance, dancing out of step. Because that's not your culture, you're not accustomed to that. So, Mr. Speaker, we never, each one of us, and I'm a member for Viva South again, tell the government about this COVID problem. Every time we went, we said to people, wear your masks, observe the protocols. We encourage, but we took none of our advice where COVID was concerned. None of our advice. In fact, you said you cannot quarrel with success. That's what you said. You cannot quarrel with success. And then you lost the election and we had Delta to deal with. But I want to really thank the officials, the doctors, the medics, the frontline workers, the first responders, the teachers, the customs officers, Mr. Speaker, the Cuban medical teams from the government, sent by the government of St. Lucia, Mr. Speaker, for the help, led by the Minister of Health, for the help they gave us on the COVID, Mr. Speaker. We'll be eternally grateful to them. So, Mr. Speaker, COVID is not over, but the numbers are going down. And I say to people again, get vaccinated and follow the protocols that exist, and only when they are relaxed, then we can relax with them. We always said, in fact I said follow the science. They laughed at me, made a puppy show of me, all kind of memes, follow the science, me. The same night I said so, Don Lemon on CNN said follow the science. The same night. Say, Mr. Speaker, I'm a child of God, and no weapon formed against me shall prosper. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank everybody, my colleagues, the staff of the ministry, the police, everyone, Mr. Speaker. The prospects are challenging. Our biggest challenge is the cost of fuel. It's a serious challenge you have, Mr. Speaker. But there are signs of improvement. The tourism industry is doing very well. It will continue, and I'm sure the Minister of Tourism, when his time comes in the policy debate, he'll tell you about some of the gains we've made and the prospects for tourism. I want to remind you, Mr. Speaker, I want to remind you that out of all the people that say they are tourism guru and we know nothing about tourism, there was one of them who sat down there. He said he was a better tourism minister than Menisa Rambali, Lon Theophilus, and Philip Japia put together. The one that was sitting down there, the short one. In that time, he did not build one new hotel. Not one. The member from Microsoft, who professed to be a tourism hero, a tourism czar, he didn't build one new hotel. Not one. Not one. I can tell you, as Minister of Tourism for 2 years and then for 4 years, for 6 years, Mr. Speaker, and I can tell you the number of hotels that were built under me and the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party. And this minister is going to announce a number of hotels that's going to be built under him and the government of the Labour Party. No, never. Never. So, Mr. Speaker, that's our record. So, I stand very humbled and very proud to be working with this team of men and women, Mr. Speaker. We have a job to do. We have a challenge. But philosophically, we understand the needs of the people of St. Lucia. Philosophically. Because all of us, our DNA is different. We do not think that we are entitled. We don't think that we are privileged. We don't think people are backing dogs. We won't tell people shut up and listen to your masters. We won't do that. We understand people and we'll work with people, Mr. Speaker. And that is why we started a laptop for ordinary people's children. We do not say, Kigain, sir. We started a laptop program, give every child a laptop to make them be able to allow them to compete with children all over the world. We were criticized for that. That's our DNA. That's what we made up of, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, these are exciting times. It's challenging, but it's exciting. And in the policy debate, you hear a lot more. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.